Why does Loki wear bandages over his eyes? Why did Loki cover his eyes even as a child? Why does Loki believe that he needs to destroy the world? It's because from childhood, Loki has been cursed with seeing visions of the future, visions of the end of the world. We know that certain characters in One Piece are born with a powerful gift, not just typical future sight, but rather the ability to see the far distant future, years, even decades in advance. But we also know that seeing this far ahead into the future can lead to confusion and misconceptions. From Loki's language and scenes so far, it seems that Loki has actually already seen glimpses of the final war. Loki knows the path to the dawn can only come through destruction. But the problem is that he doesn't understand the full picture, leading him to grow up as a force of chaos, a wildfire without direction, believing that he needs to set the world ablaze in order to save it. This simple truth of the reason Loki covers his eyes to close himself off from the never-ending deluge of visions of Ragnarok explains Loki's entire character, why despite having a kind heart, he grew up as such a terror to the giants of Elbaf, and why he still actively aims to destroy the world. Underneath this proud warrior is a great pain from seeing a future that no one else can, and from being ostracized for his misguided attempts to save the world through destruction. Today we're going to be breaking down why Loki likely has the curse of prophecy to see the far future like Madame Charlie, and what that tells us about Loki's own future in the story. But first, I've got a deal for you all for a world-class VPN for less than $3 a month. That's right, while most VPNs cost $13 to $15 a month, right now, Surfshark, the sponsor of this video, is allowing my viewers to use Surfshark for less than $3 a month. And the best part of it is that if you sign up for Surfshark right now, you can keep Surfshark VPN at that same low price of less than $3 a month for up to 2 years if you want, and you can get an extra 4 months free. You can also try out Surfshark with zero risk because Surfshark is also offering my viewers a 30-day money-back guarantee. And in case you don't know what VPNs are what most people use when they go online nowadays. And if you're not using a VPN, then you really need to, because VPNs let you change your location online to anywhere else that you want on the planet. So anything that's not available for you in your region, you can get with Surfshark VPN. That means things that are streaming for free on Netflix in other countries, or streaming sports for free like football, or even if you want to play in game servers in other countries. All of that is available with Surfshark VPN. So if you're not using a VPN, then you're seriously missing out. And if you are using a VPN, then you should stop wasting so much money and just switch to Surfshark for a fraction of the cost. So get your Surfshark deal today for less than $3 a month. Just go to surfshark.com/Morge or use code Morge at checkout for 4 extra months of Surfshark with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Linked in the description below, or just scan the QR code. So that aside, to begin with, Loki is a very uniquely contradictory character, unlike any we've ever had in One Piece before. On the surface, Loki seems like just another one of One Piece's typical misunderstood heroes, a common archetype in the series that I expanded upon in this video. Powerful warrior figures of a given island who have a notorious reputation, but underneath that reputation are actually very kind-hearted and well-meaning figures.
They judge me before they even know me.
With Loki, it's seemingly more of the same. Despite everything the giants of Elbaf believe about him, that he is an absolute evil, the shame of the nation, a cold-blooded, untrustworthy murderer, and so on, in actuality, Loki apparently has a kind heart. He also is friends with the animals of Elbaf, showing his soft spot. It seems he didn't actually murder his father, King Harold, in cold blood. And of course, most importantly, Luffy seems to like him. And Luffy only ever befriends characters who are genuinely good inside. So same as usual, right? Just another warrior with a bad reputation who's secretly a good guy underneath. Except with Loki, there's a twist that separates him from the past iterations of this misunderstood hero character type. It's this small little thing, which is that Loki does in fact genuinely, from the bottom of his heart, want to destroy the entire world. So under the surface, he's secretly a good guy with a good heart, but on the other hand, he does legitimately want to cause the apocalypse. Not to mention, even if Loki didn't actually kill his father, that doesn't change the fact that Loki does seem to be legitimately guilty of a lot of crimes, such as arson for instance, and even if it was just a tactic to escape, Loki did not seem to mind potentially burning down all of Elbaf. So with Loki, we have a fascinating situation, a character who is likely a good person deep down, but at the same time who genuinely desires the destruction of the planet. So why is that? Well, it starts with Nika. To begin with, we know that different giants have different beliefs regarding what Nika is supposed to do, particularly at the end of the third world. Every giant aspires to be like Nika, so they all revere him, and apparently the notion that Nika is meant to be a destroyer of the world is fairly common. However, Loki seems to be the only giant who actively aims to fulfill this path of becoming Nika the Destroyer, believing himself to be the sun god who needs to bring the destruction of the world. So then the real question is, why then did Loki land on this destroyer path for Nika? What influenced him to believe that this is what the world needed and that this is what Nika is supposed to do? You might say that maybe it was because of the influence of Rox, who may have also believed in the destruction of the world just like Blackbeard does today. But based on the scene between Loki and Rox that we saw, it seems like Loki wanted to follow Rox because Rox best embodied what Loki already believed in, not because Rox actively indoctrinated Loki. If anything, Rox seemed to want nothing to do with Loki. This indicates that Loki's dedication to the destruction of the world was likely his own goal and motivation, even prior to meeting Rox. So where did it come from? Well, the answer is hidden under those bandages. Loki was cursed with visions of the future, visions that he felt were his destiny to carry out. To begin understanding why this is the missing piece of Loki's character, we have to begin with looking at the biggest clue, the bandages. The bandages are the most interesting aspect of Loki's design because there is really no reason for him to have them. What reason would there be for a warrior to cover his eyes? A wound or injury does not make sense as bandages aren't necessary after scars have healed, and these are not recent bandages as Loki has actually been wearing them since he was a child. And this right here is the key. The bandages being on since childhood establishes that for some reason Loki has always needed to cover his eyes. What if the simplest answer for why that would be is that Loki has observation haki that is overwhelmingly powerful? Observation haki that is so potent that he needs to cover his eyes just to focus and think clearly. We've seen in One Piece that observation haki that's too strong, that can't be fully controlled by the user, can be overwhelming. Kobe was having a mental breakdown as his brain was overloaded by all the information pouring in from observation haki. We saw the same thing happen to Isa in Skypiea. Interestingly, we've also seen that when Luffy was training his own observation haki, it was important for him to start by closing his eyes so that he could focus and concentrate better, allowing him to see more calmly and clearly. Now, we already got a major hint during chapter 1151 that Loki has exceptionally strong observation haki, at least on par with Luffy's, as only he and Luffy were able to accurately sense where Gaban and Chopper fell, whereas even Zoro and Sanji could not. And Luffy is already one of the best observation haki users in the world. However, we know that there is another level to observation haki even beyond Luffy's, a level that it's unlikely even Luffy will ever reach, and that is the ability to see the distant future. The strongest observation haki user in the world that we know of up till now is not Shanks or Katakuri. It is actually Madame Charlie. While most future sight users such as Shanks, Luffy, and Katakuri are able to see a little bit into the immediate future, Madame Charlie can actually get glimpses into the far future, seeing events that will happen even decades down the line. And what's interesting here is that this level of observation haki is actually so absurd that it's seemingly not even in the user's own control. Madame Charlie can't actually decide on her own how much of the future she sees, or when she sees it. The visions simply strike her beyond her own volition. And on top of that, these visions aren't very clear. Whereas basic future sight gives one a very clear vision of the exact events of the next several seconds, this sort of extreme future sight of the distant future gives visions that are vague and lack context. And the key is that these visions can be extremely traumatic without context. For instance, Madame Charlie was terrified after seeing the visions of Luffy destroying Fishman Island, and she became fixated on that fear, even though she never got to see the surrounding details of why and how Luffy does it. While we, the reader, can assume that any context in which Luffy eventually destroys Fishman Island will be for the greater good, as we have seen this from plenty of past storylines, Madame Charlie only seems to get a small glimpse of what will happen. She only sees Luffy and destruction, leading her to incorrectly assume that Luffy is a great threat to Fishman Island that must be terminated. Thankfully, by the end of the arc, Madame Charlie was able to see Luffy in a different light, but the isolated vision she saw of Luffy destroying the island was clearly extremely jarring and misleading, and set her down the wrong path. Now, does that sound like something that may also explain a certain other character's situation? We know Loki has extremely strong observation haki, but what if it is way, way stronger than we realized? Let's put the pieces together. We know there needs to be some reason that Loki has chosen to cover his eyes since childhood, and we know that there was something that has made him believe since childhood that the world needs to be destroyed. What if Loki also has the gift of prophecy like Madame Charlie? Though in this case it is more like a curse, as Loki likely sees visions but lacks the context behind them. And so like Charlie, Loki may have come to an incorrect conclusion. See, we know that Loki's beliefs are actually partly right. We know that the future of the One Piece world likely will involve destruction in some way. One Piece has a very prominent recurring thematic message that destruction of what exists is needed before something new and better can be created. We see this over and over throughout the story, Arlong Park being destroyed before a new village can be made. Dalton wants to destroy the entire nation of Drum Kingdom so that it can then be reborn as a new land without a name. Skypiea is completely wiped out of existence so that a more harmonious nation can be formed. The entire island of Dressrosa is literally reduced to absolute rubble, a completely decimated civilization, but it is thanks to that a new land of freedom can be born. Oda loves the idea of destruction and rebirth. He argues that it is often essential to set everything literally back to zero in order to fix things, and that is also reflected in One Piece's mythology, the death of the sun leading to a harsh winter which can then lead to the rebirth of the sun. And now similarly, we learn that the history of the three worlds always involves the end of the world in some way before the birth of a new world, with the belief being that in particular the end of the third world is what will lead to a true dawn. So consider what we know about the end of One Piece. We know that Luffy is the true destined figure who will play the role of the Sun God. We know that he is going to bring the end of the third world, and we know from the way Luffy has been written throughout the story that he will likely save the world by first destroying it. We even had an earlier hint that Fishman Island will be destroyed by Luffy's hands, for example. So if we know that this is what will happen at the end of One Piece, then think back to what Loki likely would have seen if he got a glimpse into the far future. Loki would have seen a glimpse of the world being destroyed by the Sun God. Much like Madame Charlie, it would not have been a detailed vision. Loki would have just seen a glimpse that can be easily misinterpreted. Loki would of course have been able to recognize Nika, and would of course have recognized Nika's actions as destructive, but much like Madame Charlie, Loki would not have been able to understand why Luffy, aka Nika, is doing what he is doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Loki as a child began to see lots of visions of the far future, of the final war, visions of destruction and chaos across the planet, and Loki kept seeing one particular recurring vision of the Sun God bringing the end to the current world in some climactic fashion. And so right there, if Loki is indeed able to see the far future like Madame Charlie, then suddenly everything about him makes sense. But first, do you love One Piece's villains? Well then you're gonna love our new line of artwork, the Ultimate One Piece Villain Poster Collection. Starting with Lucci, Crocodile, and Doflamingo, we are going through the entire story of One Piece to showcase every major arc's iconic villain, all drawn in minimalist art style, with hidden layers of imagery in each work, showcasing the most powerful moment from each of these classic villain storylines. And the best part is that you can buy 2 villain posters and get a third one free. So if you want to get Lucci from Enies Lobby, Crocodile from Alabasta, Doflamingo from Dressrosa, or all 3, then hit the link below and pick them up for your walls. Each month we'll be bringing the entire story of One Piece to life, arc by arc, villain by villain. So start your collection here. And if you've completed the full collection of the world of One Piece, if you have a poster of every island, then we will send you the final unlockable exclusive poster for free. One Piece's dream destination, the moon. Just tag me at Mr. Morgeman on Twitter with a photo of your full collection and we will send you the moon for free. Let's put it all together. Loki is a kind character at heart. As a boy, he would befriend animals, he did seem to genuinely love his father, he has been established to have kindness underneath his harsh exterior, and most importantly, Luffy has connected with him and bonded with him so far, and Luffy is an immaculate judge of character. And yet from a young age, Loki also began to desire the destruction of the world. What could possibly reconcile these two dramatically opposing aspects of his character? The simple key is in his design, the bandages that he deliberately chooses to wear, in order to, for some reason, obscure his vision, as well as the powerful ability Loki has been hinted to have, observation haki. If a good character like Loki chooses to pursue something as terrible as the destruction of the world, then he must have been misled to believe that destroying the world is the right thing to do, that this is somehow necessary to save the world. And considering all the giants of Elbaf seemed to discourage Loki from doing this, considering his father Harald encouraged peace and pacifism, considering even rocks is clearly not responsible for planting Loki's destructive ideology, Loki's inspiration for destroying the world must have been intrinsic, meaning the most obvious choice for what led a good-natured character like him to believe that the world had to be destroyed would have been if Loki began seeing these visions of destruction himself. Visions of such an apocalyptic future flooding in would have led to Loki, even as a child, covering his eyes to calm his senses. Growing up, Loki would never need to use his own eyesight to look around, as his observation haki is so strong that he can sense everything he needs to. Much like Fujitora, which is interestingly a parallel case of someone with extremely powerful observation haki choosing to take away their own vision because they were so tormented by what they saw. So Loki as a child has these visions. He comes to believe the world will need to be destroyed in the future. He sees that this will be at the hands of the sun god, and as we know, every giant in Elbaf aspires to become the sun god themselves. Loki would naturally have believed it is his destiny to become the sun god and destroy the world as he foresaw. That's why once he comes upon Rox, he believes that he is fated to join Rox's crew, as Rox was also on the path to destroying the world. That is also why Loki became an arsonist growing up, as he was already walking down the path of destruction, believing he would one day set the world ablaze. That is also why he doesn't even hesitate to attempt to destroy the island of Elbaf itself. Loki simply believes he must become Nika the Destroyer, and that this is the right thing to do, the destiny for himself and for the world. Loki's core character drive of destroying the world coming through his own future sight is also perfectly in line with a lot of hints throughout the arc that observation haki is going to be extremely important in Elbaf. Elbaf literally begins with our most extended future sight vision ever, with Shanks seeing an extremely comprehensive vision of Kid's assault before defeating him. Skopra Gaban has repeatedly been built up to be a master of observation haki, potentially even beyond the monster trio, as he was able to sense the God's Knights multiple times throughout Elbaf when the monster trio could not. The God's Knights also have been displaying the ability to hide their presence from observation haki, and for the first time since Zou, Luffy's voice of all things is becoming important in the story again. Elbaf is likely to be an arc that revolves around observation haki, and the central character of the storyline is the most significant example of this, as his entire life he has grown up seeing visions of the distant future. So let me know in the comments below if you agree that this finally explains Loki's character, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear how observation haki will play a role in the climax of Elbaf, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below. And make sure to get your Surfshark deal for less than $3 a month. Just go to surfshark.com/Morge or use code Morge at checkout for 4 extra months of Surfshark with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Link in the description below or just scan the QR code.